All right, today we're going to talk about graphing simple rational functions. So we're going to learn what a rational function is and how to graph it. We're actually the real simple ones, when they're just 1 over x, we actually call it a reciprocal function because these are reciprocals of each other. So if I'm going to pick some values to graph this, if I put -5 in, I'm going to get -1/5. If I put -2 in, I'm going to get -1/2. If I put -1 in, I get -1. If I put in -1/2, that's the same as 1 over -1/2. This is division, so I have to flip and multiply, so it's 1 times -2 over 1, which is -2. If I were to put 0 in the denominator, it's going to be undefined. So we're going to have an asymptote here. Okay, it's undefined. There's going to be nothing there. If I put in 1/2, I'm going to get 2, then 1, 1/2, and 1/5. So if I graph this, -5 and -1/5, -2 and -1/2, -1/2, and -2. I skipped to -1 and 1. And I've got my undefined, 1/2 and 2, 1, 1, 2 and 1/2, and then 5 and 1/5. So what we have is we've got our parent function that looks like this. All right. So this is our parent function. Again, it looks like this. Some important things to realize, and I just kind of made this out, is we've got asymptotes again. My vertical asymptote, the one up and down, is the y-axis, or x equal to 0. My horizontal is going to be the x-axis, or y equals 0. Our domain is going to be all real numbers except for when x equals 0. So that's how we would write it. And our range is going to be y is an element of the reals such that y does not equal 0. So those are some key things to understand with these functions. The other is that they can be transformed just like all of our other functions did. So if I have this form, y equals 1 over x minus h plus k, the h moves it right or left, okay? And since it's negative, it goes kind of the opposite of what you think. And the k moves it up or down, okay? If my fraction is negative, it crosses the x-axis. We don't talk about the y-axis because it's going to give us the same kind of flip. Right. So I have my vertical asymptote is always going to be x equals whatever our h value is. Our horizontal, y equals the k. And then our domain and range are affected as well. So its domain is all real numbers except for h. And the range is all real numbers except for k. So if I want to graph this, I'm going to look for some points. I can do that. But what I might want to know, so I can get some points on either side, is what my horizontal and my vertical asymptotes are. This is my vertical, and it's the opposite, x equals 4. This is my horizontal, y equals 3. So if my vertical asymptote is x equals 4, we kind of want to pick points on the other side of 4. So if I was to pick 5 and put it in this equation, 5 minus 4, 2 over 5 minus 4 plus 3 is going to give me 2 plus 3, or 5. So I have the point 2, I'm sorry, 5, 5. Okay. So that's on one side. If I pick 6, so 2, 6 minus 4 is 2, plus 3 is going to be 4. If I was to pick on the other side of my vertical asymptote, if I was to say go, I don't think I want to go -3 because that's going to give me a fraction, and who wants to deal with that? But if I pick, and actually the other side would be 4, if I pick 2, I'm going to get 2, and 2 minus 4 plus 3. So this is 2 over -2 plus 3, or -1 plus 3, which would give me 2. Okay, so you get the idea how we're going to pick some points. Okay, so I have the points 5, 6, 4, and then when I went with 2, it was 2, 2. Okay, and we said our vertical asymptote was x equals 4. Our horizontal asymptote is y equals 3. So I'm going to graph those in first. X equals 4. And y equals 3. Okay, so I have the point 5, 5. I have the point 6, 4. Okay. And what I want you to notice about these, I have this number 2 here. Notice that going horizontally, I'm 2 places over. Going vertically, I'm 2 places above the asymptotes. It's going to be the same down here. If I go to 2, 2, okay, and if I actually picked 3 as a point, 3 minus 4 is -1. So -2 plus 3 would be 1. So I would have the point 3, 1. And again, notice that I went 2 from here and 2 from here. That's not a coincidence. Okay, so now my graph is going to look like this. Okay, so my domain is x as an element of the reals, such that x does not equal 4. My range is y as an element of the reals, such that y does not equal 3. And so there's my graph. Okay, so another way that we can get points for this, rather than subbing things in, is we can use our graphing calculator. And I'm going to go to the graph menu, maybe, and I'm going to type this in. Now you want to be careful how you type this in. I'm going to do 1 or -1 over, and then in parentheses I'm going to put x plus 2. Now some of the newer graphing calculators will already they have a fraction mode where it'll write it right on top of each other, but this one doesn't. And then -1, not 144, -1. And I'm going to graph it, and it looks like this. So I can do some tracing. I can do gsolve to find some points, but I can also use, and we haven't done this yet, the table function. So I'm going to go to menu, and I'm going to go to table, and I could actually put my equation right in there, but remember with the Casio, it puts it in all of them. I'm going to set this up. I'm going to tell where I want it to start. I'm going to have it start at -8, and I'm going to have it end at 8. And the step means I'm going to increase by 1. I could put it to 0.5 if I wanted to, but I'm just going to put it at 1. and I'm going to exit, and then I'm going to hit my table, and I got to select it. That condition error just means I got to select it. And so there's my table. So this will give me a whole bunch of different points for the graph. So you can see at -8, it's -8/10. At -7, it's -8. So if I'm scrolling down there at -4, it's -0.5. -3 is 0. -2 is an error. And that's where our asymptote is. Our vertical asymptote is at -2. And then I've got some more points. So this is just another way that I can get more points that you may or may not be familiar with. All right, so we got these points from the graphing calculator. My vertical asymptote is going to be x equals -2. My horizontal is going to be y equals -1. So if I graph those in, x equals -2 is here, and y equals -1 is here. I'm 1 away because of the 1, but this negative flips it over the x-axis, so instead of my graph being here in here, over the x-axis, it's going to be in these quadrants. Okay? So we had the point, -1, -2 is right there. 0, -1.5 is here. Okay? So then this is going to be here. So we're going to be there and there. I have the point -4, or I have -3, which is here. -4, -0.5, which would be here. Okay. And we're just going to have the graph go here and here. So now domain and range are going to be the domain x is an element of the reals such that x can't be -2. And the range, y is an element of the reals such that y can't be -1. Okay, so there's my graph. So what did you learn today? You learned what a rational function was and how to graph a rational function. Have a math-tastic day.